Hey, church family. I'm so glad you're joining us today in this new venture we're calling Life Together. We're using these videos as a way to do three things: share some information, invite us to times of formation, and explore some ways in which our church is living missionally. Well, this week we're going to interview some folks from the Kentucky United Methodist Home for Children. Southern Hills has been a part of this ministry since our church was founded 60 plus years ago. And like us here at Southern Hills, they've had a change in leadership this past year. Well, Jill Rule and I sat down with Reverend Julie Hager-Love, the new CEO of this important ministry, and Caitlin Bryant, the Executive Director of Programs and Services for the Nicholasville campus, to talk about the ministry, hear about what God is doing, and take an opportunity to explore the needs and opportunities that they're currently facing in the midst of this pandemic and crisis. Well, once again, thanks for joining us on this Life Together video. Again, we're joined by Julie and Caitlin, and we're just so excited that you all are with us today. And for those of us who may not have a lot of story or understand the children's home, well, one of you all just take an opportunity and share it with us a little bit of the history and how we got here.
Sure. So let me just share, we started in 1871 when Methodist, after the Civil War, did what Methodists do, which is they looked around and said, where is there a need that God is calling us to fill? So in 1871, the Methodist Episcopal Church South actually founded a home for widows and orphans. And as the years went by, after the Civil War, they found widows were becoming more self-sufficient, so they concentrated on orphans more. And actually, our first place that we were was in the Louisville area. 1931, we moved to Versailles, to a 251-acre farm in Versailles, where it was an actual working farm, and the children in the orphanage worked the farm and did things like make sure the cows were fed and they could get milk and work the garden and those kinds of things. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, something happened in child care, really, and care of orphans and other children in this country and in Kentucky specifically. And we moved to more foster homes instead of putting children in ministries like ours, which were more group homes. They started putting kids into foster homes. And so we moved with the times and became more therapeutic care to work with kids who have a history of abuse and neglect. So that's sort of our history. And then in a couple of years ago, we moved to a new campus from Versailles to Nicholasville. We've been there about 2 years. And also, to go back for just a minute, in 1984, the Mary Kendall Home, which had been founded at the turn of the century by Methodists in the Owensboro area, the Mary Kendall Home became part of our system. So we actually have two campuses. We have Mary Kendall and Owensboro. We have our Nicholasville campus. But something to know about us is we do ministry in every county of Kentucky, because a lot of our ministry is also community-based ministry. We also work with the Department of Juvenile Justice to work on home incarceration and detention and work with kids there. So we are all over the state, and last year we served 954 families and children. So our mission statement is to serve Christ by providing for the physical, emotional, educational, and spiritual needs of children and families. And so one of the things that, as I first became the president CEO, that I realized I thought, okay, I've got to memorize this mission statement. And I really wanted it to be in alphabetical order. I've told people that. I'm like, why is this not in alphabetical order? Instead, it's physical, emotional, educational, and spiritual. And then I think it was Melinda, our director of development, said, Julie, that has to do with Maslow's hierarchy and what kids need. And so that tells you how we do our work. And so Caitlin's going to share a bit about trauma-informed care that we do.
Yeah. So trauma-informed care is sort of the key component of the work that we do. Trauma-informed care is a framework for treatment that involves understanding, recognizing, and responding to all effects of trauma. One key piece of the work that we do is coming from a place of understanding that every youth we care for has trauma. Historically, in previous decades in treatment, you would do a trauma assessment to identify whether or not a youth had trauma and then build their treatment around whether or not they had trauma. And so while we still do trauma assessments, the important thing that we've come to understand is that every single kid who comes into our care has experienced some form of trauma, and that even in the best cases, when they haven't experienced physical or emotional abuse or neglect, just the mere fact of being removed from their families is traumatic. So trauma-informed care is like I said, a framework, the strengths-based approach where the first thing that we focus on is establishing safety with these youth and coming from a place of understanding that safety is not something that they have been privy to, unfortunately, necessarily, and they have not had the ability to feel empowered to keep themselves safe or to have any sense of agency. So trauma-informed care emphasizes the physical, emotional, and psychological safety and creates opportunities for those individuals to reestablish safety and security and empower themselves to make change in their lives.
That is so such a great comprehensive, in a nutshell, look at how you care for our kids, and I know that their spiritual health is of a concern to you as well, and we have had the privilege at the Source campus of Southern Hills of having the kids come and be part of our worship and be in ministry with us over the last couple of years. And I'm wondering just what other ways do you have to help the kids have opportunities for their spiritual growth when obviously they're coming to worship on Sunday, and I understand we're in our streamed service. We're able to watch our streamed service this last Sunday, but I know that that's just 1 hour of the week. So what other opportunities do the kids have for spiritual growth?
Sure. So we have chaplains, and on the Nicholasville campus, we have 2 chaplains right now who are students at Asbury Seminary. And so they come in every Wednesday and do chapel. Right now, we are not doing that because we're limiting the number of people on campus, but our chaplains are in touch with the kids by sending them notes and those kinds of things and hearing from. And one of our staff was just talking with the chaplains, and one of the things the chaplain said is the kids continue to ask for prayer for others instead of themselves. And I think that just tells you a lot about our kids and their resiliency. And I want to tell you this one story. A few weeks ago, one of our chaplains asked the teens, what is your definition of love? And there was a girl sitting at a table far away of the others, and she responded with this painful truth. She said to her, love was a lie. Love was a lie. And then she started engaging more, and several weeks later, the kids were asked how God showed them kindness. And after some time, and what we try to make as a holistic program as we can, the same girl answered by saying, God gives me the kindness of hope. And I thought, God gives me the kindness of hope. Isn't that what we all want? I want to find that kindness of hope. And if we can give that kindness of hope to our kids, that's just really, really important. I think another story I think of, and I used this when I preached at Southern Hills a few weeks ago, was a young lady who had a rough time. She started our program, our residential program, when I first got there. And I remember my first critical incident report that Caitlin sent to me was about her. And so she had a hard time. And then around the first of the year, she was leaving our program. Kids are typically in our program 6 months, 9 months, sometimes up to 12 months, depending on their needs and what they need to work on, and also where another placement might be for them afterwards. And she came up to me and real excited and said, Miss Julie, you know, I'm going to be leaving soon. And I said, I heard that. I said, please know you are loved, and I pray for you, and you will be missed. And she's the one who said to me, I know I'm loved. And she said, and I know that there are people praying for me. And what's really incredible is when I told Caitlin this story, she said, she was okay with you praying for her? And I said, yeah. And she goes, because when she first came in, she wanted nothing to do with God, nothing. And then she's the one who said to me, and I think I'm going to be missed because I'm kind of a favorite around here. So we want all our kids to know that they are a favorite. I think for her, just knowing that she was good with even people talking to her about God and praying for her was just a change in her life. So we offer those opportunities. They pray before each meal. And kids are invited to opt out if they want. We don't compel, we offer. But I tell you, hearing some of their prayers before meals is pretty incredible too.
That's wonderful. You obviously have given them a definition of love. You've shown them what God's love is like through your kindness. That's a long way from love is a lie. That's a wonderful. Both of those are wonderful stories. As I said, we have the privilege of having the kids in worship with us. But I often wonder, and when they very, very first came, they were able to do a little bit of ministry with us in terms of serving others. And I know that the opportunities are limited, that they don't have the freedom to come and go to church as often as anybody else might. But are there any ways that you wish that we would or might consider incorporating them into our ministries so that they have not just a chance to worship, but also a chance to serve or maybe learn in other ways?
Sure.
I think that is a lovely offer, and I appreciate you considering it. I do think that our youth would absolutely enjoy opportunities like that, because many of them have a broad array of difficulties that they struggle with. It really is the kind of thing that has to be probably approached on an individualized basis, where individual youth are considered for various opportunities. The question makes me think of a time several years ago when I was working as a therapist in residential, and I took a group of boys to God's Pantry, and we sorted food for other people to receive who were in need. And the boys were a little reluctant at first, but it was amazing to watch them blossom and really lean into this opportunity to help other people. I've always heard that people who have less tend to give more. And I certainly felt like I was experiencing that with these kids who had all personally experienced food scarcity and just not having their needs met. And once they sort of settle into being in residential and they learn that they are going to have their needs met and they are going to have the food they need, they can stop squirreling away food in their rooms and that kind of thing, then watching them lean into and really get excited about the opportunity to help other people is really powerful. They really came away impacted by that simple experience of sorting food at God's Pantry. And so I think things like that would be an excellent thing if we could try to offer those to our kids. Like I say, on an individualized basis. A lot of them cannot necessarily cope with a big crowd or an unstructured experience, but some of them can. And we really like to be able to give, we don't want there to be a ceiling for the higher functioning individuals. We want them to be able to kind of have unique experiences on their own if they are appropriate to do that and not be limited by some of the limitations of our other youth. So we would love to try to explore those options.
That would be awesome. We'll keep in mind, I think that there are probably some things on both of our campuses that unique opportunities to serve that might arise that we could incorporate the kids. So we'll try to think in those terms so that we can give them a well-rounded church experience. Obviously, we're in the midst of here we are meeting by Zoom, and it's for a reason. We're in the midst of this global pandemic here. And I'm just wondering how that current state of affairs that we're all living with has impacted your opportunities for raising support. We realize that you need support, especially in these times, and that maybe some of the things that you've had planned, you might had to cancel or postpone. So can you fill us in on how that's going?
So we did postpone our Epicurean event, which would have been our second annual Epicurean event, which was set for at the end of April. And we postponed that. We hope to be able to do it at a later date. And last year we raised, I think, $40,000 for that during that. So that we're going to be missing that income. In addition, we just had a Fifth Sunday, and we know many of our churches, I know y'all did, Jill, because I was watching your worship service, shared about Fifth Sunday. But we know that that's going to be a different way of giving for many people. So some people have text to give, some people have given online, and then we're hoping to receive some checks. So here's the thing. I think our Methodist people and those who support us are faithful, and they will make sure that we continue this ministry, but we sure hope that they do so, one, by praying for us, but also by sending us gifts. We do not get enough from the state for all of the care that we give to the kids, and we tend to give more care beyond what is required. So if the state says you got to do 15 minutes of case management this month with independent living or this week, we're going to do as much as is needed, but we're only going to get reimbursed for 15 minutes. So because our mission is bigger than just the bare minimum. So we really depend on those funds, and we know Methodists are going to be faithful, and we appreciate anything y'all can send us for the finances. And then, of course, prayer. In-kind things that we would love to have right now. Caitlin and I were just on a conference call this morning, just our weekly COVID conference calls now. We need Lysol, the spray Lysol. We've got good hand sanitizer and all that, but our Lysol's running thin. So if anybody wants to bring some by our Nicholasville campus, you can drop it by the entrance. But let me also say, do not go out and just make a trip to buy Lysol for us. If you happen to have some, or if you're going out anyway and you see some, we would love it, but we want everybody to be safe. So,
well, thanks for those ideas on different ways that we can help. And just to do a commercial for your Epicurean event for when it's rescheduled, I attended that last year and it was just fantastic. It was fun, it was delicious, and it was great fellowship, and an opportunity to hear about the impact of the home on someone who had been a resident years and years ago. So whoever watches this, when that advertising comes out for that event, run, don't walk to get your ticket to that, because it's just super, super good time and tasty too. How about the staffing and programming? Has any of that changed? Have you had to up your staffing in order to deal with how you have to program during this pandemic? And if you have, that certainly is going to be an impact on your finances as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
Caitlin, you want to share a bit?
There have been many changes. We have been fortunate that we haven't had too many staff having to be out sick yet, but we are in the process of drawing up contingency plans for, we have to expect that may happen. We have had a few people out sick. We're also planning for additional staffing in all of our, in our independent living and residential programs to help care for kids who become sick, because we have to expect, again, while we've been fortunate that I know here in our Nicholasville campus, we haven't had to put anybody into quarantine or isolation yet in terms of our youth, but we've been making plans, setting aside spaces, drawing up protocols for how we will care for those youth. Julie has been working very hard to help us resource to obtain additional supplies so that we have enough gloves and masks and Lysol and all of the personal protective equipment and everything that we're going to need to take care of kids. We have certainly, we've implemented a lot of additional protocols in terms of sanitizing. The youth are getting a comprehensive education in what COVID is and what it means to wash your hands and sing a song or say a prayer while you wash your hands, and to do that many, many times a day. You can imagine they find it a little bit ridiculous. They don't quite understand the severity, so they think it's silly at first to have to wash their hands umpteen hundred times a day. But they're coming along and they're getting there. They're working with their staff to disinfect their bedrooms at least once a day. Our staff have been asked to implement a lot of protocols around disinfecting the staff offices and the cottages several times a day. We're working towards getting thermometers so that we can take staff can administer their own temperatures, so that we can make sure that nobody's coming in and working without realizing that they may be sick. So it's been a scramble. In our community-based programs, we've developed telehealth protocols and procedures that we've had to sort of hit the ground running and implement, because we want to continue serving all of the individuals, the families and youth that we were serving to begin with. We don't want their care to be disrupted. We understand that they rely on their providers to provide supports to them, and those needs don't go away. And in fact, they tend to increase in a situation like this.
Yeah, so a couple other things I'd say. One, I forgot, the other thing we could use, if you have it on hand and want to share it with us, is any kind of equipment that can get our kids outside for, like wiffle ball or anything like that they could do outside, because we can't take them anywhere.
Every parent is looking for that right now.
Yeah, okay, they may be, yes. So if there's somebody not using it, because we can't take them anywhere, just like everybody can't go anywhere, so outside is our best thing. And so, our staff, I just really praise our staff. They have been adaptable. We've got administrative staff working from home. We've got clinical staff taking turns, making sure somebody's always on site. And then all of our direct care staff are in here. We are almost always hiring direct care staff. So if you know of anybody who is looking for a job, you can find that on our website. And we would love to have more direct care staff that can continue to provide services for our kids beyond this as well.
Why don't you speak out your website real quick there, Julie?
It's kyumh.org. kyumh.org.
Thank you.
We'll make sure that information is on our website as well, on our Daily Bread link, right underneath where we'll be posting this video. So ladies, thanks so much for your time, for your ministry, for what you all are doing at the Children's Home. I know, I think I can speak for Jill. It's so great that we can have this partnership with you all, that we're in connectional ministry together. And we're really proud to call the Children's Home part of us here at Southern Hills. So know that we're praying for you and we're lifting you up, and anything we could do that we can help, we're going to be there for you. So again, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.